All right. What is going on, everyone? I think we are recording. Welcome to the Ramble Report. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Appreciate y'all for stopping by. Apologies out the gate. I know this episode is probably going to go up pretty late on Friday. It is right around 5 o'clock as of recording this. Just was swamped with work today. So hopefully I can still get this up on Friday. But if not, if it does get delayed till Saturday, I'll make sure to get that up early on Saturday morning. But yeah, man, I appreciate y'all for stopping by, for tuning in to talk the video games and the video game news and happenings and everything in between here today. And I got a lot of kind of back in. I haven't been able to hit on the news stories this week, but I got a lot of stuff that I was thinking we could discuss on the back end of the show, as long as we're not running too long. There's a lot of news stories that are interesting that I do want to discuss with you all, so we will plan to hit that as well. But before we jump into any of that, how about we take some questions from the Patreon members and the YouTube membership members, and we shoot the shit and talk with the kind folks over there who are keeping this channel alive. Thank y'all all so very much for supporting on Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. It greatly helps out the channel. And also shout out to Vin, Captain Corndog, and Sadik for supporting at that shout out tier and keeping the lights on. So let's go ahead and start the Patreon and YouTube member questions with Justin Parkhouse, who writes in and says, have you ever pretended to be sick to get out of school / work or occasional event, i.e. a birthday party, to play a game or some new big release? And yeah, it's funny. I used to do this almost every single year with NBA 2K. I would say probably around, I got NBA 2K14 footage running right here, and I would say this is kind of where it started with NBA 2K14, but really up until probably NBA 2K18, 19 or so, that would be like the game that I took off for. And it was more so like me taking off for NBA 2K was more about like trying to make sure that I could go in and get my player leveled up, because like when I was playing competitively, having that little bit of an early advantage to go in and upgrade your character and do all of the grinding, you want to do that early on. That way, before your friends get good, you're good, and you have that little early advantage. So NBA 2K was one of the first games that I really remember doing that for, and I think it probably would have been like NBA 2K15 or might have even been NBA 2K14, but I've definitely done it since then as well. I think I did it with Red Dead Redemption 2, I believe I took off for, and I haven't done it recently at all, really. Did I do it for Starfield? Feels like I did it for some like sci-fi game. I remember just binging. Might have been the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. That would be a weird one to take off for, though, because I had already binged through all of, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. But I do remember binging through Mass Effect 1 and 2 in that Legendary Edition as well. And with that being one of my favorite franchises of all time, maybe I did take off for Mass Effect. But yeah, like in recent years, like the last couple years, I don't think I have really done that. I mean, I will say I work kind of a weird job where I don't really have a schedule per se, especially now. Like I don't work an office job at all anymore. But even when I did work, when I had to like clock in and, have certain amount of hours in office but like I've always kind of had a job more about like, okay, well, if you don't want to work, you're not going to make money. More like self-contract style stuff. So it's like you can choose not to work if you want to not work, but you're just not going to make any money. And so for those of you who don't know, I'm a bail bond agent. I get people out of jail for a living. And so it's like, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. if someone calls, And if you don't have to go and do it, but you're leaving money on the table. But I will say, Cronos, the New Dawn, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. There was a night recently where I got a call, and like, I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Like, if it was something that was bigger, like it wasn't a big money thing or whatnot, and like I would have put the game down if it was. I'm not totally irresponsible in that regard, but I will say there was this moment while I was playing Cronos: A New Dawn, and I got a call, and I was like, I think I would just rather keep playing Cronos than get out of bed to go do this. And I know I probably shouldn't be admitting that on camera, but it just sometimes you get into a groove with a game, and like I said, we'll talk about it, but Cronos: The New Dawn is excellent. Extremely addictive action survival horror, and yeah, I fucking loved that game. So those would be the instances that I can think of off the top of my head. I remember growing up, there would be those moments where you'd try to skip school for a game, or but off the top of my head, I can't really remember. Probably the Grand Theft Autos like San Andreas. I'm sure I skipped school to play San Andreas, but it's honestly more so as an adult. This has like become a thing where it's actually WWE 2K, the first one where let's pull that up actually. Okay, yeah, so I think it was WWE 2K17 was when they reintroduced like the backstage segments where you could like fight backstage. And I think they also had it in 2K17 where you could roam around backstage in the career mode, if I'm not mistaken. But I know the first time they brought backstage back, I was so hyped. I was unbelievably hyped for that WWE 2K game, and I took off work for that one as well. But it was either 2K7, I'm pretty sure 2K17 was the first time that they reintroduced that in like a decade or so, and I was beyond excited for that. So those are the ones that come to mind immediately for me, of games that kind of became events that you're like scheduling out and planning for and looking forward to. And I think Grand Theft Auto 6 will definitely be that way for me as well, where it's that will be all consuming when it comes out. I will definitely be planning a vacation around Grand Theft Auto 6. And I was seeing people talk about this online or on, I don't remember if it was Twitter or YouTube comment section or whatever, but someone made a statement saying, I wonder if like productivity levels for Grand Theft Auto 6 when it releases on May 26th or whatever, I wonder if like productivity levels across the world are just if we're gonna see like a material effect of, oh damn, businesses are having to shut down for a day, or I doubt it to that degree, but how many people are actually calling out of work? How many people are actually scheduling vacation days around the release of Grand Theft Auto 6? It's going to be fascinating to see that, because I know for me, like that's the one game, where I will absolutely prioritize that over just about anything. That's the one thing in 2026 that I'm like, yep, I don't give a fuck what is happening around May 26th. If it actually does launch on May 26th, it's like, no, Grand Theft Auto 6 is the priority for that day. So we shall see. Captain Corndog writes in and says, games from the 2020s that you believe will be classics, like games that will still be talked about 20 years down the line, whether from unique features or timeless stories, and continue to influence games and genres for years and years to come. So this is a great question. I immediately, my brain immediately goes to 3 games. And I think without a doubt, these 3 are, like, if you're trying to build a Mount Rushmore of 4 games, right? I think the 3 are obvious, and then the 4th one, at least in terms of what is already released. And maybe that's an interesting thing. Maybe we should, yeah, you know what? Let's build a little list. So let's build out this Mount Rushmore. So like I said, I have 3 that immediately spring to mind. So 1 is, of course, Baldur's Gate 3. That's probably the George Washington of the Mount Rushmore. Elden Ring definitely is in there as well. And then I think Tears of the Kingdom is the other one. And those are the three that are like absolute guaranteed locks. And then I think that final pick is really up for debate. I think you can go a number of different ways for that fourth game. So actually, you know, how about we do this? How about we leave that fourth slot open and then we fill out a little, like, because those are the big three, and then let's fill out like the contenders for that fourth slot and then kind of talk through it. And I know that the question wasn't Mount Rushmore, but classics from the modern era that, you know, instant classics. So we'll grab 4 of them. I don't know. Throw some shit together on the fly. So I think one Astrobot certainly will be in that conversation. And to the question, talking about, you know, games that will still be talked about 20 years down the line, whether from unique features, timeless stories, and continue to influence games and genres. I think Astrobot is going to have great influence in kind of bringing the 3D platformer back outside of Nintendo. And I think you're already seeing that a little bit. Like there's like this little resurgence in the 3D, you know, mascot platformer revival starting to percolate. We won't really see the true effects until maybe 2-3 years from now, but so Astrobot is one for sure. Expedition 33 is certainly in contention as well. I think this will probably be one of the most influential games overall of the generation. It might even be the most influential when all is said and done, because something like Baldur's Gate 3, it's kind of impossible for it to influence too much because it's very hard to emulate what Baldur's Gate 3 did. Whereas with, you know, Expedition 33, don't get me wrong, incredibly talented team, but I could see, you know, dozens of Claire clones opposed to Baldur's Gate 3 clones. Like, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of you know, CRPGs of that scale with that level of production value, with that level of voice acting, and the budget just isn't there, the time isn't there, the funding, the freedom isn't there. But Expedition 33, like, you can crank something like that out in, you know, 3-4 years, probably less than that, for certain teams. So I think we'll see a lot of influence in terms of just the achievability of something like Expedition 33. And I do think you'll see like Final Fantasy games return back to that. I'm not saying the mainline games, but I do think you'll see a Final Fantasy game that looks a lot like Expedition 33 in the next 5 to 7 years. So you're going to get a lot of Expedition 33 clones. So we got Astro, Expedition 33, and then I think it's really weird to say this, but I think the other game on this list would have to be Cyberpunk 2077. And I know that that's very, very odd, because we're talking about a game that, if we're specifically looking at 2020 when it released, it was in dire straits. It was a horrible video game when it came out. But 2020s, when you're looking at the entire decade, the game took shape and really it became something totally different than what it launched as. Like, the soul was there, but the vision wasn't fully sought out. And now it's like, oh my God, Cyberpunk 2077 is certainly, like, playing it now, without a doubt, one of the best games of the generation. And I could be wrong on this, but well, I'll tell you what I was going to say, but I think I am wrong now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more. But I was going to say, I think Cyberpunk 2077 is the best-selling single-player game of this generation, but that's not correct. Hogwarts Legacy is the best-selling single-player game of this generation, I do believe. And that's the thing, Cyberpunk 2077 is technically a last-gen game that just released like a couple days before the new-gen console releases. So, yeah. we'll go ahead and eliminate Cyberpunk 2077 just because, like, I think that the impact, the influence that we'll see from Cyberpunk 2077 is more so just going to be felt in Cyberpunk 2077 2 or Cyberpunk 2, whatever they call it. I don't think you're going to see a widespread adoption of like, oh, we're going to make Blade Runner-esque futuristic RPGs. Unfortunately, I wish that it would have, long-lasting impact and influence, and we'd see hundreds of more RPGs that look like that and play like that, because I think that game is fucking amazing and probably my personal favorite from anything on this list. And so Expedition or Astro, it's okay. Yeah, that's not even that hard. I did all that for nothing. It's probably Expedition 33. That would probably be the fourth most influential, or it might even be the most influential. It might be like, I think it's probably 4 in terms of quality, like in terms of when we look back at the generation 10 years from now. I think that will, but see, that's the fun part too, is we haven't even talked about upcoming, so we got to make a category for that to see if anything can possibly dethrone, because as of right now I think those are the 4, but then we got to look kind of beyond that to what could be the final 4 to really define this generation. So you can't do that without looking at some of the upcoming titles and seeing if we think any of those will dethrone these 4. But when looking at these 4 games, I think 10 years down the road, this will probably be the order that the majority of people look at the generation as, like, so far, once again, of these 4 games in this order. And you might say Tears of the Kingdom ahead of Elden Ring. I don't know, but that, I think that's definitely the 4 for sure. Upcoming games. So of course, Grand Theft Auto 6, you have to account for Grand Theft Auto 6 being a high likelihood of surpassing 1 or 2 or maybe all of these games when it releases. I think that is, I wouldn't say a lock per se, but I think it's fairly likely that it at least surpasses, the 3 of the 4, let's say. Also, I think Clockwork Revolution is one that I don't think people are... I think people are kind of sleeping on this game. I think this is going to be a fantastic fucking video game. It's being made by In Exile, and I'll pull up the trailer for those of you who might not be aware, because it hasn't really blown up yet in the way I think it's going to blow up when it releases. So yeah, this is it's being funded by Xbox. So Microsoft is giving In Exile great writers, great choice and consequence creators, and great RPG makers, giving them like a legitimate budget and putting them on a game that is, this is a mass appealing style of product. Like, this is a game that could go on to be, I mean, tens of millions of copies sold style thing. I don't think it will end up hitting that, but it has the potential for breaking into that style of audience, depending on like how reviews do, depending on how people feel about it on day one. But it's it's dealing a lot with like time manipulation and what you do in the world and how it kind of affects these different timelines. And also, I'm going to skip ahead to the gameplay of it, but yeah, here we go. But it just, I think it looks really fucking good. And that's it seems like a competent, like a well-made first-person shooter, and we're all pretty confident that the RPG systems and the creative character and all of that will be excellent as well. So it's, and right here you're seeing in the trailer of how the different decisions that you make can kind of influence various timelines. And yeah, that's your device right there, where you're actually able to manipulate time in real time and create these different, sort of chain reactions in the environment as well. It's just got a lot going on in this Clockwork Revolution game that I'm so surprised that people aren't. And I think that this trailer right here got people on board, but just the idea that In Exile is given this legitimate budget to make a real fucking heavy hitter, potentially, like, this is, I'm extremely excited for this. Also, kind of in that direct lineage with the time dilation and manipulation and all that. Exodus, the game that's coming from the ex Bioware folks, the Archetype Entertainment, I believe is the name of the studio. I don't think it'll quite be in there. That'll probably be one we cut pretty quickly. Judas as well. Ken Levine's next big project. These are two more that are maybe a bit more hopes than actual predictions. I think that I don't think Clockwork. I think Clockwork is like legit. I think that one we actually will be talking about is like one of the best games of the generation. But I do think Judas. Listen, it is being funded to the nines. Take-Two is allowing Ken Levine to cook for as long as he wants to cook that thing, and we're hopefully gonna get a great product because of it. So, all right, I guess if I can just speak with my heart here, this is another one that I just want to see be in that range. If we get Crimson Desert and it is on that kind of, I think that there's a very high likelihood that that game comes out and is just completely fucking busted, and it just runs horribly. I think that's a strong likelihood. I think it could be a strong likelihood that it comes out and it's just ridiculously chaotic, but nothing to really latch onto and be invested in terms of storytelling, in terms of anything like that. Like, I think those are fairly strong likelihoods for this game, but if it is one of those crazy destructive sandboxes of just sheer chaos, maybe that could be the influential thing that we're seeing games. Because I mean, you're riding in on a dragon, you're flying around on a mech. It's just got so much going on in terms of different gameplay ideas. Like, I could see that potentially making some big waves next year. I do think right now, like, I don't think so. Let's kind of go through, let's pull up a list of like what is coming out soon that we should maybe consider for consideration to be in that Mount Rushmore possibility, contending for that throne. So I have this IMDb list pulled up right here, and I got it to the point of, well, I guess there's a few in there, like The Outer Worlds 2, I doubt that's going to make some major impact. Ninja Gaiden 4, I doubt it. Pokemon Legends ZA, I doubt it. Ghost of Yotei, probably not to that degree. Then we start getting to Judas. Metroid Prime 4, probably not. Reanimal, probably not. Replace, no. Resident Evil Requiem, it'll be good. It'll be a great Resident Evil game, I'm sure of it. But major league impact, I seriously doubt it. Onimusha Way of the Sword, I doubt it. Phantom Blade Zero, maybe potentially. Like, depending on the type of funding that thing is really going to get. But once again, when thinking of games of that ilk, which Crimson Desert isn't quite of that ilk, but in that same sort of realm, guy running around with sword game, I think Crimson Desert has a higher likelihood of making a real impact. I actually think The Blood of the Dawnwalker has a higher likelihood of making a real impact. It probably won't be as good as Phantom Blade Zero, but I think that, in terms of storytelling, it's probably going to be a whole lot stronger, and it's definitely a more interesting looking game to me personally. But Wolverine, I don't know. Wolverine looks very, very good, and for those of you who will go ahead and pull up a trailer for Wolverine as well, just in case anybody didn't tune in to that state of play, but Wolverine looks immaculate. Like, this is kind of exactly what you want from a Wolverine game. Do I think that in terms of when we're finalizing, when we're looking back at this generation in 2032 or whatever, 2033, well, the generation will probably end around 2028, 2029. So let's say 2030, we're looking back, the dust has settled. I think we'll be talking about Wolverine in a more positive light than we talk about like Spider-Man 2, for instance, and Miles Morales. Like, I think it will probably be a little bit more impactful than those games, just because I think Insomniac will be able to flex their narrative chops a little bit more with something like a Wolverine than they can with, well, I don't know, Spider-Man 1 was a great story, but it felt like they told their excellent story in that universe with the first game, and now it's kind of like content for content's sake. You know what I mean? Like trying to find a story opposed to having a story to tell. And with this, it's like a much more mature, you can get a lot darker. So I'm pumped to see them delve into that territory a little bit more with the upcoming Wolverine game. But do I think it's going to, I don't think it's going to, when we look back at the end of the generation, I don't think this is going to be like one of the core games that we're talking about. It's like, oh yeah, that's as good as it got for the PS5. But interestingly enough, like I do think Soros is more likely to be in that realm than Wolverine in terms of like overall sentiment, because people love Returnal so much and Soros just looks like Returnal, 1.5. So I think people will like that game a whole lot. There will be a whole lot of conversation around that game. Gears of War E-Day, I doubt it. Exodus, we already talked about that, but still I kind of doubt it. Fable, probably not. So yeah, now we're getting into territory where it's like, Light No Fire. Ooh, that's actually an interesting one. We won't throw it in there because I think we kind of got our finalists, but Light No Fire, this is from Hello Games, right? The No Man's Sky team. This is one that, like, if they really can level up and out the gate day one, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and no matter how much No Man's Sky has been turned around, that game was soured the moment it released for a lot of people, and there was just no recovering from that moment. I think if they're able to, because they're like talking about, yeah, we want to have a full-blown Earth, that is fully explorable and this, that, and the other. And if they're able to execute on the ambition day one, then that could be, in the conversation. But we'll keep it from the list. I think everything else on here, listen, 007 First Light, like Wolverine, 007 First Light, RE9, these are going to be my games. But when I'm trying to think about overall sentiment, impact on the industry, I doubt it. Max Payne 1 and 2, my style of game. Blade, my style of game. I'm down for all these. The Witcher 4, I don't think they're saying expected 2027, my ass. That game's probably 2029 or 2020. Or, yeah, I could maybe see 2028 for The Witcher 4. But okay. So we're down to our finalists here. Let's go ahead and rank them. All right, so that was a lot of work for. I think the easy and obvious thing to do is cut everything here. And oh, dude, Silk Song it should probably be. Well, no, I don't think it would be over Expedition 33 in terms of like when we look back at the generation, but Silk Song is somewhere in that consideration, that conversation as well. But yeah, I think my brain says the easy thing to do is remove Expedition 33 and bump GTA 6 up. But maybe the thing to do is remove Tears of the Kingdom, because, yep, that's what we're going to do. We're going to remove Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom is definitely the better game. But in terms of impact, Tears of the Kingdom's impact, I don't think will really be felt, because like Breath of the Wild's impact is still felt so widely today that like that big impact is carried over from 2017, and the freedom with the puzzle solving and all that, I would like to see that implemented in more games, but I don't really think we will. So I think this will be the Mount Rushmore, like when we look back at the big four games of the 2020s. I think it'll be these four, and I think you'll probably get something that's unheard of. Some indie game like Balatro, you could probably slot in here. There's some indie titles that could probably slot in here. But I think overall, like general consumer sentiment, I think it'll be these four games that people are talking about the most by 2030. So the next question comes in from Garrett Sharp, and he writes, what franchise would you like to see attempt to make a game in a different genre? For example, when Yakuza made a game that turned into a turn-based RPG when it's usually a beat-em-up RPG. So this, for me, immediately out the gate, I have one big, like, obvious answer, and then I have a lot of others that kind of... So for me, the number one pick is... I would like to see, either like a Halo or I just want to see some of those prominent first-person shooters. And even, I know that this isn't this is kind of the exact same genre, but even like Gears of War, that IP being given to a Flying Wild Hog to make a, Evil West style game, but with an IP attached to it. Because when I think about this studio in specific with Flying Wild Hog, it's like they make the Shadow Warrior games and then they go and made Evil West. And I think that Evil West is, in a lot of ways, very similar in terms of the kinetic action experience, but in third person. And it just, I don't know. Once again, I am somebody who will always prefer third person. And I just find this game to be fucking amazing. And I could just think of 100 different IP that you could give this studio. And I know that's not exactly the answer. We'll get to mixing it up a little bit more with the specific question here. But like when I think of, imagine a Mortal Kombat game in this vein. You know what I mean? Where you're playing as Scorpion or because there's, I know they're showing mostly shooting, but there's some good melee action in here as well. And it just bums me out. This game specifically is so damn good and nobody talks about it at all. And it's like, I know for a fact if you put the Mortal Kombat name on the front of that exact game, like if Evil West, if somehow you just made a third person shooter version of a Mortal Kombat game and you put Mortal Kombat on the box art opposed to Evil West, you're talking about millions of copies sold, 87 on Metacritic, 85 on Metacritic. Like, people would be frothing at the mouth for more games like that, but nobody played it. And that's the trouble of trying to, create and sell new IP. But yeah, a third person dark, like I think that I hate to just, I don't even know what's the appropriate way to say dick ride that I won't get banned from YouTube. But I know this is some dick riding energy for Flying Wild Hog, but it's like you give them the Halo name and you turn Halo into this dark, gritty, third person, survival horror or action horror kind of Cronos styled game. They would absolutely crush it because they got the movement down. They got the, I even just like watching this gameplay trailer rerun, I'm like, damn, I want to get back in there and play more fucking Evil West. But I got some other answers too. A big one, probably the biggest one that I always talk about just purely from a personal standpoint. Like, I know this is probably not something that millions and millions of people are clamoring for, but I certainly am. I would do anything to get a WWE RPG or just a wrestling RPG in general. I don't care if you start from scratch, you're working your way up through the indies, or if you play the Vince McMahon role or play the Tony Khan role where you're, or I guess now the Triple H role, where you're doing the booking and the signing and the trading and hiring the writers and fleshing it out more as like a full-on GM mode RPG. Just any kind of like more in-depth systems driven way to play in a like wrestling sandbox, I would be all about it. I know that they kind of went that direction a little bit with 2K25, trying to give you more choice and consequence, and that it actually did work. You could play that story 3-4 times and see very, very different things on each playthrough, but it's still not quite to the level of depth and complexity as I think that business is such a weird business that seeing it explored where you're truly given the freedom to kind of go in there and tinker with shit as you see fit. That's a massive, massive dream game for me. Another one that I once again, this is not to the letter of the law of the question, so I apologize again, but I would be so down to see Destiny just like have a cut the fat mode where like they release it as a single player game with all the important stuff that you need to experience to have the context of that story. Because I look at the cutscenes of Destiny and I've heard people talk about the lore, and what they talk about sounds remarkable. It sounds so sick. Like the story stuff sounds so cool, but the inaccessibility of it all, of just like, okay, well now I gotta slog through 400 hours of grinding this to do that just to see this one cutscene. Like if they just had a cut the fat mode where you could go in and they package it, bundle it, $70, whatever, and you just get to go in and have the story presented to you in a, I don't know, 40, 50 hour campaign or however long they got to make it to all, tie up and all be cohesive and have a decently presented, individualized experience. Like, I would be very, very on board to get that. This is a kind of weird one because I don't really know if you would say it's a different genre at all. But, I mean, it is a different genre. I would be down to see, like, a detective Resident Evil game where it's more coming from that standpoint of, playing as maybe a brand new character in definitely a post-apocalyptic scenario, but not full-blown, where there's having actual, like, a small town, like, on the verge of full-blown apocalypse, like, before it reaches full-blown catastrophe, like, getting into a town as the outbreak begins, opposed to, like, you're there and well, I don't know, I guess maybe what I'm really looking for more than anything is something like Alan Wake 2. But yeah, I think what I'm looking for is more just like a horror RPG in general, of taking something like a Resident Evil and that style of gameplay and, the fun action horror experience, and then merging that with some deductive reasoning and some choice and consequence, and some of that shit kind of being met in the middle at some sort of intersection there, which I know both games are still third-person shooters at the end of the day, but yeah, I don't know. I would like to play more of a detective role in some of these horror games. And Alan Wake 2 definitely delivers in that True Detective Season 1 style of vibe, but I don't know. It's very, very, it's a very directed experience, and so is LA Noire for sure. But there's something about you playing the detective and being able to fuck up and make the wrong decisions, like shit like that, is really, really engaging to me. So yeah, something like that. But that's pretty much the bulk of what I have down here. I have like a Yakuza. I think it'd be sick to see a Yakuza party game. Like, take all the mini games and throw them into some big collection and just have this big Yakuza party game of sorts. Even something like the PlayStation All-Stars, I think that should come back. At this point, they have so many, iconic characters compared to whenever they launched it in 2010, 2011, whatever year that came out. But, like, from then, now they have Aloy, and they have Jin Sakai, and they now have, Atreus, and they just have a laundry list of new characters that they could roll out. Of course, Spider-Man you could bring in there now, and they just have so many new characters on offer. And Xbox, dude, they own damn near the entire planet. Microsoft owns the entire planet at this point. Like, yeah, they should for sure both be doing party games. All three of the console manufacturers should be making party games. I'm so curious about that upcoming X-Men game, like the full-blown X-Men game. Of like, is that just going to be an action-adventure Spider-Man styled X-Men game, or is this going to be an RPG? But Insomniac's going to make an action-adventure game. I'm almost certain of that. But damn, I just feel like X-Men needs to be a like 50% Persona, 50% Dragon Age or some shit. But I don't know. Maybe not. You obviously got to have real-time, like, action-oriented combat, but so much about X-Men is like the manner and the vibes and kind of just hanging out. And I don't know. There's something importing about that. But anyway, that's just me rambling at this point. But yeah, man, I think those are all the questions. If I am not mistaken, I'll do one more scan through, one more quick look over to make sure I'm not missing anything. But I'm pretty certain that those are all of the questions. So if that is the case, we'll go ahead and start shooting the breeze about the games I have been playing. Yep, those are the questions for this week. And greatly appreciate y'all so much for writing in and submitting the questions. And if anybody else wants to jump on board, head on over to Patreon or the YouTube membership. And YouTube, the YouTube membership thing is actually, it seems like they're popping that up more frequently to where you can actually go to someone's profile on YouTube and it has the icon available immediately to join. So you should just be able to type in unnecessary rambling, click on my profile, and it should say join right there on YouTube if you feel so inclined. But yeah, appreciate y'all for writing in. And now let's talk about Cronos, the New Dawn. So yeah, man, as I was saying, this game kind of consumed my life this week. I was fully intoxicated by the old Cronos. I was very, very addicted to this experience. And out the gate, I'll say this: Bloober, they're cooking. They're cooking something real nice over there. I think I'm at the point now where I'm like, yeah, they got the goods. I just pray to God that they keep making games like this and nothing but games like this. Let me back up a little bit. Maybe a little bit less difficult than Cronos for their next game would be nice. This game is tough. It's very, very hard, and I should go ahead and state that up front for anybody looking to jump into this and you're like, yeah, I love Resident Evil, I love Dead Space, I love Silent Hill. I do think this game is appealing to a large majority of people who love those style of games, but it's harder than any of those games. It's harder than any, once again, just talking about on normal mode. But that's the thing about Cronos. It doesn't have anything other than one difficulty mode. And then if you finish the game, you can up the difficulty, but there's no ability to drop that difficulty whatsoever. So just comparing this to those other franchises and their normal modes, it's like, this is a lot harder than those, like significantly harder than those. So just be prepared, be prepared going into it that, it's early on, it's really hard. And then you end up getting the hang of it. And by the end, you'll have enough resources and inventory slots and all of that. Like the first 5 hours are the most difficult. And then the final 10 or so go down pretty smoothly. It reminded me a lot of The Evil Within 1. But this is, I was going to say this is harder than The Evil Within 1. The Evil Within 1 had a few like pretty crazy difficulty spikes, but overall I would still say, yeah, this is harder than the Evil Within 1. I think this is probably the hardest action horror game that I've ever played, at least, once again, just talking about standard difficulties. So it's great. It's great. It is not overly scary. It's just kind of moody, creepy. It's kind of got this haunting sort of, even a little heartbreaking, like emotional at times, more so than scary. Like I think one of the key things that surprised me the most about this game was just the fact that I really connected with this story a lot. I really was invested in this narrative from beginning to end. And it's like, you feel the Silent Hill 2-ness of this game. Like, it feels a lot like Silent Hill 2 to play, but then you also kind of still feel that sense of dread and that sense of, I don't really know how to word this, but the mood and the kind of undertones, the isolation, the feelings that you get for this character, and you start to really feel bad for this character, and that feeling that you have in Silent Hill 2 from a narrative standpoint, you kind of get something similar to that from Cronos. I'm not saying it's on par with Silent Hill 2. the remake. But that's the thing, when going into Silent Hill 2, a lot of us, we breathed a sigh of relief because we're like, okay, well, great. Bloober doesn't have to write a story. They're just going to be able to go in and take a story that is already damn near perfect and hopefully not fuck that up. And they didn't. But when going and making their own new IP, a thing that I was worried about personally is like, well, shit, are they going to be able to write a good story? And they did. They wrote like an excellent story here with Cronos, the New Dawn. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll just say, like, it's one of those style of games where it oftentimes felt a little bit Remedy adjacent to me. So it's like a story of time travel, and you feel this very hollow existence as the main character. And once again, I don't want to expand beyond that, but that point of your own existence inside of this weird world, and like the purpose you're serving, that all really becomes a fascinating aspect of this story, as well as, like, you know, the notes that you'll find throughout the game of the townspeople questioning who you are as a character, and they're putting together their own theories about who you are. And there's like a lot of those small details that are found in the notes. They're stringing together their own theories about who you are and what your purpose is in their town, at the same time as you, the player, are trying to figure out who you are. Like the main, there's so much mystery around what you are, the what your purpose is, what your job is, why are you, kind of going in and extracting the essence of these different people, and you're trying to figure out just what purpose you're serving, and others around you are trying to figure out the same thing. And yeah, I don't know. It's just, it kind of, as you're unsure and everyone around you is unsure, it just kind of makes the entire thing a little bit more of a nail-biting experience of just waiting and wanting to see what happens next. And if who I am, like, will I remain the person that I think I am? And will I go through with all of the goals? And there's a little bit of choice and consequence, not choice and consequence so much, but you do get a little bit of choice in this game as to, when you're extracting the essence from these people. Once again, I don't want to spoil anything, but there are a couple moments in there where it's like, oh, damn, okay, I can choose a couple different routes for how to solve this problem. And I don't want to oversell it. Like, I'm not saying it's top tier presentation or top tier writing or voice acting, but it's just got like this constantly uncomfortable sort of undertone. And it's not like super subversive or like, it's not too subtle, and it's also not too blatantly obvious what's going to happen, and it's not in your face. It strikes a really good balance where it's not just people speculating about the lore, and you read this one note and you're trying to extract a bunch of details from this one note, but there's like enough on both ends, enough mystery and enough like straightforward storytelling. And towards the end of it, the story really gets, I think becomes like it's a direct, like a legitimate story with a legitimate beginning, middle, and end. And that end is really fucking strong. And yeah, just very surrealist, esoteric, and it just God tier atmosphere and vibes throughout this game. And I think a lot of it, once again, kind of harkening back to that Remedy style of some of that art influence in there, just their use of color. It's got a lot of those deep reds, the kind of pulsating reds and the flickering static images with the, you're seeing like the FMV flashbacks to creepy old black and white footage. And it's just, it's really fucking impressive from a art style and an art design standpoint, but it takes a lot of cues from Silent Hill 2 Remake as well. Like, definitely you see a lot of that Remedy in there, but there's a lot of Silent Hill 2 Remake in there. It's extremely foggy and hard to see, you can't necessarily always make out what's in front of you all the time. And you see like not just fog, but kind of this sandy sort of just your vision is often very blurred by different atmospheric conditions at the time. And so it's got a lot of good influence in a lot of different directions. You even see a little bit of banishers in there, just in terms of your occupation or your objective or whatever you want to call it. With banishers of kind of being the last line in between the land of the lit and the land of the living and the land of the dead, and getting to make that call. This is it kind of broaches some of that territory as well. But yeah, it's as you see from the gameplay that has been running here of me, just kind of a lot of it is walking around. You're doing a lot of just straight up walking around, and I see it being billed and described a lot as like a, Dead Space style game or an action horror game, if you will. And it's definitely like, no doubt that is, I think that you would have to call it that more so than you would call it, I don't know. It's obviously not an old school Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, Silent Hill 1, Silent Hill 2. It's not that era of survival horror, obviously, by just the perspective that you're operating from. But it's like, it's not Dead Space level action either. So going into it expecting Dead Space level action, I think you're probably setting yourself up for some disappointment if that's what you're looking for. It's a lot of Silent Hill 2. Like, there is a lot of Silent Hill 2 in this game. It feels a lot like Silent Hill 2. It plays a lot like Silent Hill 2. And it's even paced a lot like Silent Hill 2. Just once again, a much harder version of Silent Hill 2. Like, the entire... I don't know if y'all... For anybody who hasn't played Silent Hill 2, the remake, the hardest section of that game is the prison section, without a doubt, in my opinion. The entire game is kind of that level of difficulty and beyond for Cronos. So just as for anybody who has played Silent Hill 2 remake, that's kind of the thing I would say to expect going in is around that level of difficulty of the prison section throughout the entire game. I think it already showed the footage here where I shot at the first enemy. I charged up a headshot, or I think I charged up a headshot. Nothing really happened. They keep on coming. And it's the thing where later on in the game, the later you go in the game, you'll start upgrading your weapon and you'll have tons of bullets and shit like that. But I was just to the point where I was like, man, fuck this. As you're seeing, I'm just juking and jiving, running around those motherfuckers. Like, if I see an open space, I try to just get around them. And later in the game, definitely, take them out, because it only takes you 2-3 shots if you're charging up those headshots and nailing them. But early on in the game, I was just preserving as much of my resources as humanly possible. If I found bullets, I was just trying my damnedest to not use those bullets. So maybe me even comparing it more to a Silent Hill 2 remake is just more so from my playstyle opposed to the intended style of play here, where like if you do go more guns blazing, which good luck, because resources are definitely limited, but maybe if you are going into this trying to shoot everything in your path, then maybe you will get more of a action bend to the overall experience. But it's a lot of slow plotting, slow walking around, and just taking in the sights and sounds, which thankfully the sights and sounds are beautiful. It's fucking, it is from a sound design standpoint, this game is immaculate. And I know a lot of that stuff is taken for granted with horror games, because almost all horror games have great sound design, but this game really, really has fucking excellent music. And it's just, it helps build the tension to a totally different level. One thing I will give it a ton of points for, though, is the map and then sort of the waypoint navigation system, where it kind of pops up, you press in R3 and it pops up somewhat like an Elder Scrolls game or something of that ilk, where you just directly see where you're supposed to go and you just go there. And it's not quite as like, of course, the pinnacle of this, in my opinion, was the the dead space waypoint navigation system that popped up under your feet every time you pressed in R3. But that, the little navigation line that would pop up under your feet, this isn't that, but it's a great alternative, in my opinion, of just like getting you to where you need to go without being too much of a pain in the ass, and because there's going to be a lot of backtracking in this game as is. You're going to be going back and placing items into your inventory box as often as possible. For me, where I was constantly going back to that inventory box and replacing, ammunition and trying to get as much as I could for those moments where, oh yeah, damn, here we go. We're heading into a, bullet sponge boss encounter where I'm going to need these, health packs. I'm going to need as much ammunition as humanly possible. I'm going to need as much resources as humanly possible. So you're trying to get prepared for those inevitable outcomes. And so you're going to be backtracking to prevent, sitting there banging your head against a wall for those boss encounters. So yeah, as you see on the screen, a lot of the game, I'm just kind of wandering around, and I think I ended up putting like 17 hours into it, and I'm pretty sure the average runtime for this was around like 12 to 14 hours. So it definitely took me a little bit longer than it takes most other people, but it's I wanted to make sure that when those situations would arise and I was met with a challenging ass boss, that I actually had resources available to take them out. And yeah, so it's I enjoyed the shit out of this game. I really did. I would really recommend this to anybody who is a fan of really any brand of survival horror, action horror, more slow methodical horror. Like, I think it kind of tackles a great balance in between those two, realms. But it's just, the only thing is the difficulty, where it's like, it would be hard for me to recommend this to anybody who's not looking to be challenged. Like, if you're not looking to be challenged, this is not a game for you. But other than that, I think it's a game for pretty much all survival horror fans. It is one of my favorite games of the year for sure. I definitely have, small quirks with it. It's a bummer to me that anytime you pick up, a note or whatever to read it, because like one of the things that I do when playing survival horror games is I just run around all the different environments and I'm just pressing X all the time, just trying to pick up any resources that may be left behind, especially in any sort of boss encounter where you're resource depleted at a certain point. So you're just running around pressing X, and it's like, well, shit, if there's something in that area that I accidentally click X on, and now I'm reading this thing and the boss is behind me just winding up a powerful attack about to one hit me, it's like, well, that's a fucking bummer. I'll always prefer a scenario where anytime you read something, it pauses time. You know what I mean? So once again, that's a very minor nitpick, but there is shit like that for me is like, at one point I had a checkpoint that was right in the middle of being attacked, and it's like, what? That'd be nice if that wasn't the situation there. But yeah, by and large, I ended up figuring out that it's like, okay, just go through this damn thing and make it a situation where you start to realize that you can't hoard everything. Early on, I think it's a great strategy going into this to try to hoard as much as humanly possible. But later in the game, I was like, all right, I have enough health packs. I have enough of all of this shit. If I get into a bind and my health is starting to drop down to a dangerous rate, like, let me go ahead and burn a health pack. And that by that point you have plenty of them stored away. So, it's the hoarder mentality that I think a lot of, if you grew up playing survival horror games in the 90s, I think you kind of develop that hoarder mentality going into any survival horror game. But I found it, I actually did begin finding the game a whole lot more fun the later I played it. And when I was just like, yeah, fuck it, I will shoot some, I'll shoot some of these like standard enemies, take them out. I'll use the health pack here and there. I don't have to hoard absolutely everything. And yeah, it's so some of the mechanics that this is all very, very early game footage, but some of the mechanics in the game, like you hold R2 to charge up your shots to do more damage, and then you can go in and like upgrade your character to where you put more emphasis and you put more points into the charge shot, so you'll be doing more damage through the charge shot. And like you can make it to where it charges up faster. And so that was pretty much like I stuck with the pistol, upgraded the overall firepower, and then upgraded the charge speed, and was able to take just that standard pistol from the beginning of the game. I was able to take it with me through the rest of the game, and then I had like a machine gun and a shotgun that I upgraded thoroughly as well. And you have those like little cores. I think you saw that earlier in the footage where you run up to the cats and the cats drop these little cores, and the core is how you upgrade your actual suit, your little Dead Space suit here, and traveler suit, whatever you want to call it. But so that's sort of the upgrading process, and then you get credits. You kind of in the similar way of Dead Space's credit system, where, well, it's actually you don't get the credits from stomping on the enemies, which is one thing. They do have like the stomp system from Dead Space where you press, I think it's R2 in Cronos, and you stomp down on the enemy, but no credits pop out when you stomp down on them, which was a bummer to me. That's so satisfying, stomping down on an enemy and seeing the credits fly out. But I could go on and on about that. They have like the zero gravity stuff similar to Dead Space, but I think they implement the zero G shit in Chronos really well, where it's like in Dead Space, they made it a lot better in the Dead Space remake, but it is a bit tedious in Dead Space, the like the OG game on the 360 PS3, and in Chronos, it's often the zero G shit is pretty much where, like, anytime you're doing it, it's pretty much always taking you forward. So there's no, like, because everything looks the same in those scenarios where you're in, when you're having to use that space boots or whatever the fuck they call them, everything looks similar. You're jumping from these different pads that allow for your space boots to be activated, whatever the fuck. Everything looks very similar, so it's easy to kind of get lost and start going back and forth. And there was only one instance of that in Chronos, but the majority of the time you just stay going forward. And as soon as you go forward, something will kind of block the path to where you can't go backwards. And so you stay on track pretty easily throughout Chronos. And it's not a game where, once again, through the map and through, like, you're not doing a lot of, when you're backtracking, you know that you're backtracking and you're doing it intentionally, opposed to being forced into backtracking that you're not really like. That's one of the worst feelings in survival horror games. It's just being lost and running around and running around and running around. It's just such a progression killer, flow killer. This really has none of that. It's an excellently paced game, and I fucking adored this thing. So highly recommend it to anybody who is open to a very, very challenging survival horror game. But I have also been playing a little bit of Silent Hill F. So I'm probably about 4 hours in, and I'm liking it. It's okay. The opening like 2 to 3 hours, I was kind of like, this is boring. This is very, very boring. It was just a lot of like wandering around nonsensically and just hitting enemies with sticks, or I guess pipes, whatever the fuck. I'm hoping that I'll jump back in and really find some flow, I will say, like, the last hour or so that I was playing it, I started to come around a little bit more on it, started having a little bit more fun with it. I just don't know if this is really like the Silent Hill experience that I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm really looking to wander around and hit enemies with pipes as like my only form of combat. And maybe it expands upon that or expands beyond that later in the game. But yeah, I can't say I've been in love with it so far, but you know, it's so it opens up and it shows you like you have these different difficulty settings for the game, and it's only story or hard. For you can select like story difficulty or hard difficulty for the puzzles and for the combat. And it shows like the intended experience for the puzzles is hard, and then the intended experience for the combat is story or the easy mode. And so I just set it on easy mode for the or story mode for the combat, and then set it on set it on hard mode for the puzzle solving. And I will say this specific instance right here, I do like this, that like you're able to zoom in and actually kind of pick which specific drawer that you want to open up, and there's a little bit more like involvement in there. Like you can actually scan around this entire box and pick the areas that you want to interact with. I did think that was a pretty cool a pretty cool little twist. But it's just, I like a lot of the systems around the combat, but I just found the actual combat to be fairly clunky. I like how a lot of the elements surrounding it, though, they kind of like all weave together into one another, where it's like the sanity diminishes as you do like your charge up attacks, and you have weapon durability that you have to account for. So it's like, okay, my sanity is key to me being able to do my most powerful attacks, but my most powerful attacks also diminish my weapon durability the most. So I got to make sure I have a toolkit to go in and repair my pipe or my, whatever different weapon you have. It's like the core combat is extremely, extremely simple. With you have these like, I think it's 3 openings at the start of the game for weapons that you can slot into your inventory. And then if you break one, obviously that opens up to where you can go and grab a new weapon, put it in the weapon that just broke. You can put it in its place. But you have like 3 weapons that you're swapping between. And I think that, and so as of right now, I think that might be one of the bigger problems for me, is that everything regarding the combat is so basic. Like the actual combat is so basic, so simple, but I don't think like I can go back and change it. So I don't think I can go back and change the combat difficulty to hard. Like once you lock it in, you're just kind of locked in. And I don't know. It's weird because I found that some of the puzzles on hard are extremely, extremely obtuse, and it seems like overcomplicated just for the sake of being overcomplicated, where I'm like, oh, I'm just kind of running around in the fog, or I'm running around and I'm trying to figure out which of these, emblems to overturn to unlock this different, like it's stuff that just feels very, very obtuse. But then the combat feels extremely simple, extremely easy. And I'm like, well, shit, man, it's kind of the thing. It's like normal difficulty exists for a reason. I would really like the combat to be a little bit harder than it is. And I would like the puzzles to be like just slightly more straightforward than they are. And just having a difficulty setting where it's like just story and hard. Say, well, there's a key middle thing missing here. But yeah, I'm definitely like not totally put off to the game. I'm not totally to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm never gonna return to Silent Hill F. Like I'm open to it. I'm open to going back and playing a bit more, because there's like moments in this game. I think it has one of the best jump scares that I've ever seen in a game. And I won't spoil it because it's like main story related with its placement. Like you will see it, so I don't want to tell you where it is. It's something that you will come across. But just a fucking great jump scare, an excellent atmosphere, excellent music, and it's very natural feeling. It's a lot of very kind of smooth, natural sounding instrumentation that gives you this early to mid 1900s Japanese feel, and then just certain, like they have this stringy sort of, it has such a smooth, simple sound, and then at times they'll completely rip that from you, where they'll completely rip the music away entirely, and it'll just be you left in silence. And so everything about the sound design in this game has been excellent so far. Everything about the atmosphere in general. I love the Japan setting. I actually do kind of like wandering around the town and just going and collecting resources and shit. I mean, at times, once again, I think that is a little bit obtuse as well, where it's like, go find this person's house. And like, I have no idea who this person is or where their house is. Like, I'm sure later in the game you have all that figured out, but through the context of the story, it doesn't really make any sense either. Where it's like, I'm sure she would know where this house is, and I'm just kind of wandering through completely oblivious to where the house might be located. But it's small little nitpicks that kind of add up to just make an overall, like, my overall feeling of the game. I definitely do not hate it, but I'll just say that I started playing something else after this, and I was like, oh, I don't know that I necessarily feel a great urge to jump back into Silent Hill F. I would definitely say anybody who is a survival horror fan, I would highly, highly recommend Cronos before Silent Hill F. Once again, it depends though. Like, I would rather play a third-person shooter than a, stamina-dependent, kind of slow, methodical third-person action adjacent game. But once again, opinions are like assholes, and shout out to the assholes. But not bad. I think that once I finish, so I guess we'll go ahead and start talking about Hades 2 as well. Once I finish Hades 2, if I can finish Hades 2, we'll see. But Hades 2 kind of took my time and distracted me when that dropped. And I think that I might jump back into Silent Hill F at some point, but we'll see. There's a lot of big games coming out over the next few months that I'm much more interested in, just based on the opening 4 hours. I think it might take a lull in releases for me to jump back into Silent Hill F. Not to say it's a bad game. I don't want to completely disparage the game, because I think that I think most people actually will go into this and enjoy the shit out of it. There's a lot to enjoy there. I've just got to a point in the story where it feels like it's picking up, and things are happening in the narrative that are, early on, I was like, I could not fucking care less. There was one thread of like potentially like the father being a little bit abusive, or at least negligent at the very least. I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then it seemed like they completely abandoned that plot point for a little bit, and then focused a lot on trying to build up this, I don't know, love triangle of sorts and this high school drama. This, it's just like, I don't fucking care about any of this. But then I will say, when I stopped playing the game, it was starting to pick up narratively a little bit. So I would maybe like to see that further fleshed out. And that would probably be the reason I jump back into it. If I ever do jump back into it, it'll be to see like just the story evolve a little bit more. But yeah, we'll see. Not bad. Definitely not bad. It is a good game. It's like an objectively well-made video game. I would just I feel like an old man, but not quite my style of Silent Hill. But let's talk a little bit about Hades 2. So, apologies for the lack of gameplay footage here. So Nintendo Switch, the Switch 2 has the most annoying ass process for getting gameplay footage, where you can't like upload your footage directly from the device. You have to go in and like send it to an app, and then you got to take your footage from the app, upload it to YouTube. And so it's like next week, whenever I come in here, I'll make sure to have the footage ready to go. But this came out last night, right? I played it for the first time last night, and listen, I'm liking this game a hell of a lot more than I liked Hades 1. I enjoyed Hades. I completed like the first run, like I completed a run in Hades 1, and I was like, cool. I think this is solid. I wasn't as crazy about Hades as most people. Most people had it in like their favorite games of last generation, and I didn't feel that strongly or anything close to that. I was like, yeah, this is a solid, 8 out of 10 style video game. It's fun. And then a big thing, people were talking about like the narrative, like saying this is a excellent story. I'm like, I could not tell you one single fucking thing about that story. The story made no impact on me whatsoever. I think the gameplay was fun. And out the gate with Hades 2, it's definitely, it no doubt, it feels a lot like more of the same. But I like this new main character. I like the kind of witchcrafty sort of vibe going on there with the new, more magic-based powers and a lot of that shit. And there's just something a little bit more addictive about the gameplay this time around with Hades 2 that I've really caught it. I probably played like 3.5 hours straight last night. And then when I woke up this morning, the first thing I did was booted in, played a little bit more of Hades 2. And yeah, I can't, and maybe a part of it is the Switch 2 of just playing it handheld. Like, because I can't really tell you exactly the reason for why this is clicking with me so much more, but I've been playing it. So like last night when I booted it up, I just had a podcast playing on my TV. And like while I was doing the run, I would have a podcast playing on my TV, and then was just playing this in handheld mode. And it was so easy to just, hours were just being burned while playing through this fucking thing. So maybe I'm coming around. Maybe I'm starting to see the light on the jumping on the Hades hype train. But I guess I should say that as well. The out the gate is like the performance on the Switch 2. I was very, very impressed with. It's like, to be fair, I will say as well, kind of adding to that, performance for sure top notch. I was stunned by how well it performed on the Switch 2, and not that it's a overly like intensive, it's not some graphical powerhouse or anything like that, but frame rate was excellent. It just has a great fucking visual identity that popped off the Switch 2. Like, I was impressed by that. However, I will say, as much as I do like playing it handheld in terms of, freeing up the television to just kind of vibe out, chill, listen to a podcast while you're doing your run, it's also at the same time the ergonomics. Like, probably 2 hours in, I start feeling my hands get a little sore. 2.5 hours in, I'm like, oh shit. Because Hades is fucking challenging. Hades 1 was very, very challenging to get through a run of Hades 1. And Hades 2 feels... Listen, maybe I'm just early in and I haven't unlocked enough of your, permanent buffs or anything like that. But Hades 2 feels kind of significantly more challenging so far than Hades 1. Like, I'm at the second world right now, and I just keep on getting decimated by that boss at the second world. And maybe that's the thing. I get to that second world, and that's when my hands start fucking cramping up, because you're just, going absolutely mental on that Switch 2. So I think what I might do is I might end up docking the Switch and just, throwing some headphones in and listening to a podcast while playing, but playing it docked. But I don't know. There is just something about playing a game like this handheld where it feels like the perfect fucking handheld game. But yeah, I gotta say, I'm probably locked into this until finishing it. I have really, really been enjoying these runs, and once again, of course, something could pop up and release that completely distracts me, or I'm always open to that possibility. That happens all the fucking time. I'm like a moth to a flame with these damn games. But I think right now the plan is to just continue playing this until finishing it, and then once I finish it, if I have time, I'll probably go back to Silent Hill F to finish up Silent Hill F. But also, man, I don't know if y'all have seen it. I'll pull it up real quick. Fucking Dying Light the Beast. So right now it's sitting at a 79 on Metacritic, and it's actually got a higher user score than critic score, which is an anomaly nowadays. But yeah, so it is currently the highest reviewed Dying Light game of all time. And what I'm seeing and hearing about it, like, I really want to jump in and play some Dying Light. But it's like the unfortunate thing where I've said 1,052 different times that I refuse to buy a full price, like a $60 digital game. And then here comes a $60 digital game that I'm like frothing at the mouth to play. But I think I'm going to stand on it purely on principle. I've said it too many times to you guys. I'm not going to buy this fucking thing full price. So I'm going to wait until it's like $52.99, like a 4% price decrease before I jump into it. Just stand on fucking principle alone. But yeah, I do want to play some Dying Light the Beast for sure. But so yeah, until I'll finish Hades 2, maybe jump back into Silent Hill F, or I really, that'll be right around the time that Ghost of Yotei releases. So Silent Hill F might get put on the back burner for the year. It's one that I feel mostly okay with shelving. Yeah. It's just like, it was like, okay. It's like, this is fine. It's not blowing me away, but I'm at least glad that Konami is back invested in that IP. I think we need more, like, just attempts. Make more Silent Hill games, make more Metal Gear games, make more of all of this shit. I would rather you just make new IP, but regardless, like, I understand there's value of having a franchise, a recognizable name on the front of that box. So yeah, and I've also been playing some other stuff, so we might actually cut the news out, or maybe we'll do like a rapid fire news roundup. But yeah, fuck it. We'll hit a little rapid fire news roundup. Just go through them quickly. But I have been playing some other stuff that I want to talk about as well. So one of the games I jumped into and checked out for a couple hours is a game called Wanderstars. So this is it's that turn-based game where you're collecting words, and instead of like using traditional turn-based attacks, you're inputting the words that you collect by, you defeat these different enemies and you end up collecting words to use in battle, and you're stacking your attacks that way. So say you defeat an enemy and you get an attack called like smash or something like that. And in your arsenal of moves, you already have words like super and fire. You'll combine all three of those to get fucking super fire smash attack. So you'll do like this flaming Hulk smash down on an enemy and do additional damage by adding the word super or the word extra, these different modifiers. And how they roll, how they like kind of how they roll out that additional damage with the additional words is you gain honor by not killing your opponent. So they will plead and beg for mercy at the end of the fight before their health is like totally depleted. And if you grant them the ability to like walk away from the fight, they'll give you an additional bonus. And so it'll be like a new word that you can use in battle, whether it be a new attack or, an extra modifier, an extra kind of bonus, extension, a new fucking, let's say you have something like fire attack. They might grant you the ability to do wind attacks or different water-based attacks or whatever the case may be. So I was thoroughly enjoying the game quite a bit. I think it has excellent animation, as you see here. I think the combat is really fun, really different, new, fresh. The only drawback for me is that there's no voice acting. It's mostly just as you saw on the screen, and they have these little bits of, more like kind of, I don't know what you would call it, partial animation, I guess, where you'll see characters actually somewhat in motion or ships taking off or whatever the case may be. But for the majority of the game that I've played so far, it's just kind of visual novel adjacent, where characters stand still on a screen, text pops up below them, you read the text, you press X, move on to the next kind of image. And it's a little bit of a bummer because, once again, as you see here, the animation quality in terms of character modeling is god tier. It would be so dope to see this thing get like full-on voice acting, a few more cutscenes to really make it feel like, an anime in game form. Because it's like episodic, and I'm at the end of the first episode right now, but it's episodic in its nature, so it just feels like it could be this. It feels like this game has the potential to be something so much bigger than it is. But with the budget they were given, I think that they did an excellent job of making something like this is fresh. This is a very, very unique spin on the, JRPG or JRPG adjacent market. Just the turn-based style of combat that they're using here is not something I have often seen before. So shout out to it, Wanderstars. I would definitely recommend jumping into this if you're craving a fresh take in the JRPG or turn-based RPG space. And then I also played a little bit of this game called Wizordum, and I think this released on PC a while back, but it's now getting its console release. And so it's kind of got like this, as you're seeing, a little bit Minecrafty sort of look to it, retro boomer shooter sort of vibe to it, first person perspective, but it's more of like a magic shooter, a magic first person action game of sorts. And it's so they're about to cut in right here where I get the fire hands. I'm shooting fire from my hands with these fire rings, and it's just, I don't know. This game is pretty fucking fun, man. You're going around and everything is destructible. Like all the little, objects in the environment are destructible. Some of the doors aren't quite destructible, as you're seeing there, but you can just run around and wreck shop, throwing fucking fireballs at enemies and shooting magic ice shards and turning these enemies into ice. And then you pull out your mace and you crack them over the head and the ice shards go flying all over the place. Like it is very turn your brain off, silly fun, throw a podcast in and just, cause total fucking havoc, total carnage. And as you see, like, you can get your health elevated above the 100 kind of metric at the bottom of the screen there. Like if you eat different berries that you find on on a tree or whatever, you can get your health to like 150 running around just like a maniac, pretty much impervious to damage. And I mean, you still obviously you're taking damage, but you can be a complete god in this game. And I'm think I'm in the 3rd level right now. And yeah, it's just one that I definitely see myself jumping back into this and turning my brain off for a couple hours here and there, and just fucking around. It's a fun little action game. So Wizordum, pretty from the art style alone, like the art style was the thing that kind of got me in the door on, because I think I saw this for the first time. I was doing like I don't remember what video I was doing, but I remember seeing it in a video I was doing, and I was like, dude, this looks like I've never seen anything that really looks like this. And so, yeah, I had to check it out. And yeah, I've been enjoying it a hell of a lot. But how about we hit some rapid fire news topics before closing off the show? And I'll hit these really, really quickly. Get out of your hair. The first one that I have wrote down here is that Claire Obscure Expedition 33 has sold over 4.4 million copies, according to the game's developer, which is fucking insane. I think that this is maybe not quite on path to rival something like Persona 5, but other than Persona 5, like, I genuinely think Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is going to go down as one of the best-selling turn-based JRPGs in modern times, which is, I mean, that is quite a fucking feat. And so I totally see why they are making new games in the Claire Obscure franchise. I see why they're not giving up that name. I think that's pretty damn smart. So by the end of the year, this thing will probably be selling close to 5 million. I mean, it's already selling close to 5 million copies. I think it probably will sell over 5 million copies in 1 year, which is just unheard of for this genre. So other than like Pokemon. So shout out to Sandfall. Get your money, and let's get some more games from you. And speaking of get your money, fucking Team Cherry is getting a whole lot of dough off of Hollow Knight Silksong. Hollow Knight Silksong has sold 3.2 million copies on Steam alone since its release, according to analysts' estimations. And I think that was it Ampere Analytics? Let me... Ahead of its release, Silksong was the most wish-listed game on the platform. Okay, these sales are according to analysis from Game Discover. So, yeah, once again, just estimates on this, but regardless, it will go on to be the best-selling Metroidvania of all time. So talking a lot about two games back-to-back in the indie space that are having tremendous success and will go on to be like all-time bestsellers in their respective genre, which is just, once again, you hear all the doom and gloom, all the bad news about games nonstop. These are two mega hits that came out in 2025. And, I think that asking price is doing a lot of the heavy lifting as well. $20 for Silksong. What was it? $40, $50 for Expedition 33. Regardless, not full price. And, actually, we can kind of continue right on top of that, because Mafia: The Old Country is also selling pretty well. If rumors are to be believed, we might be getting a sequel, and it's not really a rumor. This is coming directly from one of the voice actors. I don't really want to spoil much about this story, because even if I spoil who the voice actor is, it, obviously would... Anywho, let's just not even dive into that. But it's... The person who said this, which what they said was Hangar 13... They pitched a sequel to Take-Two, to 2K, and it has been greenlit. So, in theory, we might be seeing a sequel to Mafia: The Old Country. And with how Mafia: The Old Country ends, I definitely want to see a sequel. But just staying kind of right there and talking about the price for games like Silksong, $20, blows up, massive, one of the best-selling Metroidvanias of all time, probably the best-selling Metroidvania of all time. Expedition 33 with the $40 asking price. Mafia the Old Country with the $50 asking price. All did really well. All sold really well. And it's like, well, yeah. These are prices that people feel are reasonable for these games. You know what I mean? Talking $80 and $70 games and all this, that, and the other. It's like, people don't want to fucking pay that shit. So, and when you have options like Silksong and Hades 2 is $30, Mafia the Old Country $50, Expedition 33 50 or 40, whatever that was, like, that's such a tantalizing offer in 2025, and it's actually, I think, marketable, and I think that you can use that to your benefit, because the more hands that you get the game into, that's the equation, right? It's like trying to find the highest price possible to get this game into as many hands as possible. But if you keep on going up on the asking price and the number of hands that you get it into keeps on going down, like the math just doesn't end up making sense. So yeah, shout out to Expedition 33, Mafia the Old Country, and Hollow Knight Silksong, all doing extremely fucking well. And speaking of games that I hope do extremely fucking well, Dispatch, the upcoming Telltale-like, where you play as the dispatch officer for the superheroes, it got a release date, and it is coming out on October 22nd, coming to PS5 and PC. It's $30. Once again, talking about these asking prices that I hope people, continue to support. $30 for the full season, or $40 for deluxe versions of the full season that includes a digital art book and 4 digital comics. It will be released episodically over the course of 4 weeks, 2 episodes every week, totaling 8 episodes in full. The Xbox release date is unknown currently, and the game comes from the creators of The Wolf Among Us and Tales from the Borderlands. So I pulled this information from Dom the Bomb on Twitter. I'm really surprised it's not coming to Switch 2. This seems like a great Switch 2 game. And listen, I'm fine with the every week the releasing. I'm not the biggest fan of episodic releases in general, but every week seems reasonable. That seems totally fine to me. I can't do the whole, hey, we're going to release part 1 in January and part 2 in September. It's like, well, who the fuck's going to remember the story? You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about releasing a 6, 7, 8 months later. No, dude, that's crazy. But yeah, I really hope people end up supporting this, because I think we're at the tipping point where if this doesn't do well, I don't think we're going to see many big budget Telltale style games released anymore, as we're not really even seeing Telltale games released anymore. But I hope this does well. I hope people go out there and support it. And they were talking as well about the developers. I believe it's Adhog is the name of the team. Anyway, it's ex-Telltale people. They were talking about that they were working on The Wolf Among Us and then, got kicked from the project or whatever and went and made this. But they were like, yeah, we hope The Wolf Among Us 2 comes out. And they were like, we think the game we were working on would have been really, really great. So who knows if we ever see The Wolf Among Us 2. I kind of doubt it. But yeah. We shall see, man. So, Konami ran a survey asking fans which Metal Gear games they want to see remade. And, this is... I guess I get it from the standpoint of, like, you want to gauge the interest to see, like, okay, well, what are the options? What are the possibilities for, the future of this franchise? And it's like, if you're gonna go back and remake more Metal Gear games, why not just do 1 and 2 and leave it there and then move on to Metal Gear Solid 6 or a spin-off series or a new IP that looks a whole hell of a lot like Metal Gear, or whatever the case, right? Like, I mean, I guess you could go back and do the NES games, remake the NES games, but I don't know. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that I'd be down for that. Like if that was their next move to remake something and like totally fucking remake it to the point where it's unrecognizable. I do think shit like that is cool, where you go in and kind of reimagine a game, remake it to a point where it's like a Resident Evil 2, Final Fantasy 7 style remake where you actually got to go in and like, rethink how the game should be recreated. I would be down for that. But, Konami said recently that part 2 of the Legacy Collection will be revealed soon. So, like, the only options in terms of the popular games is Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. Those are the only two left. Like, don't remake Metal Gear Solid 5. And I think they had that on the list. Like, should we remake Metal Gear Solid 5? It's like, fuck no. What are you talking about? No need to remake 4 either. As long as once they get that playable on a PlayStation 5, a Switch 2, PC, Xbox, like once that's playable on all the modern platforms, then we're good. You don't need to remake MGS4. But yeah, do 1 and 2. Have the trilogy remade. I am fully in support of that. And I'm fully in support of going back to the NES games as well. Speaking of Kojima related shit though, we got the box art for Fizzant. That's about it. Kojima held like a celebration event for Kojima, and he revealed the box art for Fizzant and said he wanted to scan a ghost for OD, and revealed a trailer for OD again where it's a person crying and screaming and lighting a candle that worms popped out of. And this was about a 2 hour and 45 minute presentation, which I guess I can't say shit running a 2 hour podcast where I'm talking to myself, but Kojima did some Kojima shit. He, I guess we could, I will say shout out to this. I think this box art looks fucking sick. It's got a, very Metal Gear-y, very Blade Runner, Matrix-y sort of vibe to it, futuristic, but like touches of modern in there with I think that the rifle looks pretty standard, pretty modern. But yeah, let's pull up a trailer for OD because I guess that's the bigger talking point. So it's pretty much a 3-minute trailer that doesn't really show much. There's some PT hints and shit like that in there, but I do think that this one little bit, like this little shot right here, I guess this is some semblance of gameplay where she opens up the door and walks over to it looks amazing. And whenever they get to the character models and shit like that, like it does look very, very impressive. I'm just curious about the fan feedback for OD. Like when this game comes out, is the response to this going to be, yep, this would have been cool to have PT in 2014, 2015, but a first-person walking sim style game in 2025, it doesn't feel like we're really in the era of the walking sim. It feels like that is a craze, that is kind of a phase that faded, and now we are we going back to that style of game with PT? But it doesn't really matter. Whatever he does, I'm open to potentially checking out. And not potentially checking out. Like, I'm going to play this. I'll play anything that this motherfucker makes because I'm just so curious about it. Even stuff that doesn't necessarily tickle my fancy like a Death Stranding, But it's like, if he's making it, I want to see it. I want to check it out. Lighting babies' heads on fire and the wax melting and looking like blood and then worms popping out of a cup. It's like, yeah. Yep. That sounds like a good video game to me. I mean, I don't... Are we going to probably do this for 45 of the hour and 30 minutes of the entire game? Probably, but that sounds like a Kojima game in 2025. But this is the part right here where it's like, this actress, it's the same thing we saw at the Game Awards, but now there's like a full reveal of the actress. I forget the lady's name, but yeah, and she's crying. It does look fucking absolutely amazing. And I know it's Unreal Engine 5, and he said that Microsoft is going in there and helping him realize his vision with, utilizing Unreal Engine 5 technology. And so there it is. Sophia Lillis, Udo Kier, and Hunter Schafer. And yeah, these character models look unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And using the metahuman technologies you see there. So yeah, for all the players and the screamers, shout out to Mr. Kojima and Xbox for that. Another trailer that doesn't really say much of anything, but probably says too much. And it's going to be released episodically, where that is OD Knock is the sub header, the subtitle there. And then like Jordan Peele is going to release his version of OD, I guess, as a different release on a different day. I don't know if they're going to bundle it all together. Is it going to be episodic and all released at the same time? I have no idea. But yeah, so I'm assuming that's the plan, to go in and get different directors to direct their vision of what OD could be and drop it as individual episodes or all packaged together in one bundle that you pay for all at once. But kind of sticking there talking about Xbox, let's talk about the ROG Ally, Xbox ROG Box X Ally 3. It got its official price. So they're launching at $600 for the little guy and $1,000 for the big guy. And so pre-orders just went live last night, and it seems like it is exceeding expectations by and large. It sold out on Microsoft's or the Xbox official, digital storefront, sold out there. And it hasn't sold out at like Best Buy or Amazon or anything like that, but it might have sold out at Best Buy. I think I saw a headline about that before I came in here. But regardless, it's selling decently well. And it's really, the thing is like, what are the expectations? What are Asus's expectations? And obviously it is meeting and surpassing those expectations if it's selling out. So like, this is very, very good news. And I think this is very good news for kind of different reasons. One, of course, like, cool. People are going in and buying this thing. Like, that's good. But the big reason for me is like, I think that this makes Xbox look at this and go, oh, wait, people actually have more interest in this than we thought. And so that could mean, like, okay, here's the thing. You see something say it's sold out, and immediately you're like, oh, well, it must be selling millions and millions of copies. Like, no, God, no. This is... their supply is so limited because they're not expecting the demand to be great at all for this thing. Asus probably, like, the original ROG Ally might have sold maybe 500,000, a million units absolute max of the original ROG Ally. So if this is on day one, they're probably stocking up. Once again, this is all speculative horseshit, but you would assume day one for this, they're stocking up like maybe 20, 30,000 units of these things. So if they're selling through that on day one, Asus is elated. They are fucking thrilled to see those numbers, because that's not numbers they get with their standard device. And people underestimate the brand power of Xbox. And I know, like, we like to laugh and giggle and oh, Xbox of going third party, this, that, and the other. It's, dude, they sold 30 million of those Series X consoles. That is, I mean, almost, I think the Steam Deck is at 6 million. That's a lot more than the Steam Deck has even sold. So like, there is still brand loyalty to Xbox. However, my thing here is like, the two things are true. One is that there's a very limited supply of these things. So like selling out, like I think the Asus ROG Ally has had spells where it has sold out as well in the past, like the standard one. And we know that it hasn't sold all that well. So it's like, something selling out doesn't necessarily mean, like, this is, I don't want people to look at this information and be like, oh shit, fuck yeah. You know, it's selling on par with the Switch. It's obviously not. It's never going to cross into the tens of millions of Asus Xbox ROG allies. So like, it's never going to do that. It's probably never going to sell 1 million units. But if it can surpass the expectations of Asus and the expectations of Microsoft, more importantly, Xbox, more importantly, there's the win. Because if this sells well and Xbox goes, okay, well, how do we make a mainstream version of this? We thought that this was going to sell to 75,000 people and 700,000 people bought it. Well, how do we make the next one sell to 70 million people? And so it's like, okay, well, the first thing is it's not going to be $1,000. That's the big thing. If Xbox is behind the next one of these, it will not be $1,000. It will be priced appropriately because Asus makes all their money on that initial purchase. Asus makes all their money by someone going in, spending that $1,000. That's where all of Asus money comes from for this Xbox ROG Ally. There's no back end money. They don't sell software. That all of their money comes from the hardware. Whereas with Microsoft, with Xbox, they would make the majority of their money selling that thing to 70 million people and getting 70 million people to interact with their different storefronts and buying games, microtransactions, DLC through their storefront. You know, that would be, so Xbox could eat the cost, like significantly be able to eat the cost. That's what all the console manufacturers do. They all eat the cost to sell software on the back end. So it's like, I hope that this thing does well enough to where Xbox goes, that's cool, but we're going to launch our own next-gen handheld device and make it a mainstream mass market, appeal to the masses with an acceptable, approachable price point, which I think would probably be around, you don't want to go anything, you don't want to get into that $700 territory. I think that range is poison. And I think that's being shown pretty obviously with the PS5 Pro. So I think you go 600, 650, something like that, which is still up there. But I still do think you could probably hit a mass market audience around that price point, because that's what Moore's Law is Dead is talking about right now with the next PS6, wanting to target around that 6 to 650 range, somewhere in there, and same with the handheld device as well. So like those are the numbers you got to be striving for that with this next device. So yeah, this is pretty much all good news that this thing is selling more than Asus expected. So shout out. And I guess talking about things not selling well, the Xbox Series X is gonna continue. They're gonna remain in third place because the Xbox console prices are rising for the second time in 2025 due to changing macroeconomic environments. So the Series S is now $399, up $20. The Series X is now $649, up $50. The Series X Digital is $599, up $50, and then the 2 terabyte Series X is $799, up $70. So and there's the rumors right now about the Costco pulling Xbox from their store shelves and no longer selling Xboxes digitally on their online storefronts either. So it's like, this is all kind of to say, I hope that this period that we're in right now is just Xbox, Microsoft, whoever, collecting data internally, going, what are the moves? Because this is the white flag, obviously. They're done with this generation for the Series X. Like, this is, nobody's touching an $800, Series 2 terabyte Series X. Nobody's even touching a $649 Series X. It's not going to happen. But maybe is this them going, okay, let's gear up? And am I giving too much credit to Xbox? Possibly. Could this just be a situation where Asus is going to continue making Xbox handhelds and we're going to have someone else kind of come in and develop our like third party kind of develop our console hardware? It could be where they offload all of their hardware to different manufacturers to where they have to no longer engage with really any of that shit, but there's still devices out there that have an Xbox logo on it. Could be. My hope, my fucking real hope here is that this is them kind of pulling what they pulled for the 360 generation, where they didn't, obviously, where we lived in good times back then. You weren't raising the prices in 2004 for your Xbox, your original Xbox that had been on the market for fucking 3-4 years at the time. But they did discontinue the hardware, and like they were no longer producing original Xboxes as they were gearing up to launch the 360. I hope that is what's happening here, where it's just like, listen, we're going to up the cost with the remaining Series X's that we're producing. We don't want to eat a significant loss, so here we're going to up the fucking price, obviously due to the tariffs and all that. But I really hope that they're gearing up to actually make a real play for next gen and create something interesting with that PC Xbox hybrid, launch it at $600-$700, something in that range, something that's moderately affordable, and get back into the market and really compete. So yeah, and kind of staying right there, Forza Horizon 6 is going to be set in Japan, and they're saying it's a timed exclusive to Xbox, like a timed console exclusive. It's not going to be day one available on PS5. And I wish they would do full-blown exclusives, full-blown console exclusives, but they're in a tough spot with the exclusive stuff where they've already set the precedent that like that's not what they're doing anymore, but also they're right on the precipice of launching a new console, and they're like, well, fuck, how the hell are we going to, like, if they are going to launch this next console in 2027, the rumor is that they're going to launch a year ahead of PlayStation. So if that is the case, we're right around the corner. So it's like, well, how do you get people in the door? And so maybe these timed exclusives are a way of doing that. I tend to think that more likely than not, the precedent and the expectation has already been set, and people are already kind of aware that that's, you can put on the mask, but we're kind of aware who's under the mask. Like, it's Microsoft is calling the shots here, and those games are going to come to PlayStation. So it's tough, but it is like if they said, hey, we're doing 2-3 year long exclusive windows for our first party stuff, that would be something that would make me jump in and get a next gen Xbox. But yeah, Forza Horizon 6 set in Japan and is a timed console exclusive. And final roundup real quick here. EA is looking to go private potentially. And so this is coming from the Wall Street Journal. And so EA is nearing a $50 billion deal to go private, according to the Wall Street Journal. The deal would likely be the largest leveraged buyout of all time and reportedly includes private equity investors like Silver Lake and Saudi Arabia's PIF. So, man, on the surface, like I saw this today for the first time right before I came in here. And it's, to me, it's like on the surface, it's like, oh, great. EA will no longer have to be, beholden to shareholders. It's like, well, now they'll have to be beholden to the Saudi government and a private equity firm, which is like, I don't know if that's better than being beholden to shareholders. I don't really think this is a win at all. I think we're probably better off with EA, remaining like a publicly traded company. And it's not like I'm not against Saudi investing in entertainment. I actually think that's pretty fucking sick. Like that their leaders have a real investment in the arts, if you will. I don't really want to have any governing body. I don't want to have the government of any sort dictating what creators can and cannot create. It's just, that's very, very sketchy to me. But it's because with Ubisoft, with Tencent having so much of their tendrils invested in Ubisoft's future, it's like one fuck up, because I think that there was some incentive put in place where if Ubisoft doesn't turn the ship around, then Tencent gets to take over more of that company, and it ends up being able to dictate more of the goings on with that company. Don't quote me on that. This is not verbatim. Like, I don't remember this 100%, but I thought I remember reading something about like the spin-off division of Ubisoft that is like the lesser known IP. You know how they spun Ubisoft off into two different sectors, and one of them's like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry and all the big dogs, and then all the lesser known IP are on the other end. If that other end doesn't end up turning things around, then I think Tencent begins somewhat of a, I don't even know if you would call it a hostile takeover, a more just direct takeover. Once again, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it's like I don't love that. You know what I mean? I don't love these. Like it's valuable to invest in entertainment, and like I can understand the want and need to do that for these different, you know, like the Saudi private investment firm. Like, I think that's a great idea. It's a great idea to invest in that, but from my standpoint, I don't love that. I think that's very, very sketchy, and maybe even more so than that is the private equity firm. The what is it? Silver Lake, I believe. Yeah, Silver Lake. It's like that. To be fair, what was it? Sabre. I believe that they had a private equity firm that invested in them, and they're actually turning the ship around quite a bit after leaving Embracer and getting their freedom to move on from Embracer. So I'll remain optimistic. Like, I'll remain hopeful that this goes well, but I don't necessarily love this at all. $50 billion though. Like, hey, I guess you can't. What's old dude's name? EA CEO. I got to get some food. It's the fucking, what time is it? 7 o'clock. I still haven't ate yet today. But my brain is not. Andrew, is it Andrew? Jesus Christ, I am blanking on everything, because they had him picked as like one of the dudes to lead up Disney if Bob Iger was going to step down, if I'm not mistaken. But blanking on names, blanking on everything. That's the show, guys. I'm running out of steam today. I'm ready to fucking get some food in my system and take my dumb ass to sleep. But I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Once again, I apologize greatly for the late upload. It's 7 o'clock right now, so hopefully I can have this available to you all before like 10 p.m. It takes a little while to process these things, but not too long with that damn fiber internet. But it is a 2-hour 4K fucking upload, so hopefully it'll be ready by like 9 or so. I don't want to publish it like 10 o'clock on a Friday night. It's like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Taking up 2 hours of our Friday night, you narcissistic asshole. But I will get this up as quickly as possible, guys. And that is the show. That's the Ramble Report for today. I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in, so much for stopping by. Hope y'all have a great weekend ahead of you. And yeah, man, take it easy, guys. I think I'm pretty much just locked in for the weekend with some Hades 2. Watch some football on Sunday. Hopefully have a nice chill weekend. Just a good de-stressor is what I am looking forward to. So I hope the same for all of you out there. And yeah, hit me in the comments about all of this horse shit. What you've been playing, how you feel about EA's next EA's next business endeavor. I'm curious to see what y'all think about that, but let me know in the comments below, and I shall see you good people in the next video. Take it easy, guys. Goodbye.